She had no idea anyone was watching. And that's the part that gets me every time. When Alex Eala stepped off that plane, she was thinking about grass courts, about footwork, about the disappointing French Open exit that still weighed heavily on her mind. She wasn't thinking about history. Then she looked up. Nothing in her life. Not the rise in the rankings, not the sold-out crowds, not the flags that had followed her across 3 continents, had prepared her for what was waiting on that airport tarmac. 3 black SUVs, engines running, government plates, and a man in a dark suit walking toward her carrying a bouquet of roses and a leather folder, a folder that, just hours later, would become the center of a story that captured headlines around the world. But here's the detail nobody is talking about. The folder. Everyone covered the tears. Everyone covered the applause. Everyone covered the press conference. But the folder was there before any of that. Before the cameras arrived. Before the journalists were called. Before the world even knew something extraordinary had happened. That folder had been prepared weeks before Alex Eala's plane ever touched British soil. And what was inside wasn't just a gesture. It was a deliberate decision. A calculated move made by the leader of one of the world's most influential nations. And it was directed toward a 21-year-old tennis player from Manila who had never won a Grand Slam title. So, the question isn't what happened. The question is why. Why Alex Eala? Why now? Why Birmingham? And why would UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer allegedly clear his morning schedule and personally wait on an airport tarmac for a tennis player ranked outside the top 30? Because the answer isn't really about tennis. It never was. Let's go back to the morning of May 31st, 2026. Birmingham was quiet. Gray skies hung over the city. The airport moved at its usual pace. Ground crews carried on with their routines. Business jets came and went. Nothing seemed unusual. Then the motorcade arrived. 3 dark vehicles with tinted windows moved slowly across the airport grounds. Airport workers noticed immediately. Motorcades don't usually wait for tennis players. Heads of state don't spend their mornings standing on airport tarmacs greeting athletes. Yet, there it was. At exactly 8:47 a.m., a private jet touched down. The engines powered down. The stairs unfolded. For a brief moment, everything seemed frozen. Then Alex Eala stepped out. She wore a baseball cap, pulled low, and carried the tired look of someone who had spent hours traveling across continents. Her focus was elsewhere. On practice. On preparation. On the grass court season ahead. Her mother, Riza, followed behind her along with coaches and members of her team. Nobody was paying attention to the motorcade. Then Alex looked up. She saw the SUVs. She noticed the government plates. And then the led vehicle's door opened. A man stepped out. For a moment, her brain simply refused to process what she was seeing. Because the man walking toward her was Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, standing on an airport tarmac, holding flowers, walking directly toward her. Her mother froze. The coaches stopped in their tracks. And Alex Eala, who had faced match points in front of thousands of fans, who had handled pressure on some of tennis's biggest stages, suddenly found herself speechless. Starmer extended his hand and smiled. "Welcome to Birmingham," he said. "I've been looking forward to this." At first glance, it appeared to be a simple greeting, a diplomatic gesture, a photo opportunity. But what happened next was far more significant, because the real story wasn't on the tarmac. The real story happened inside one of those SUVs as it drove through Birmingham traffic. There, according to the story, Starmer spoke with Alex about something much larger than tennis. He talked about the Filipino community in the United Kingdom. More than 200,000 people. Nurses, caregivers, engineers, healthcare workers, families who had helped build communities throughout Britain while often remaining unnoticed. Then came the words that reportedly changed everything.
Biggest crowds we've seen stay this late to see a player play. So what does it mean to have this following, especially at this time of night, especially with it being cold and being the last match?
It means the world to have this community behind me in such a prestigious tournament. And for them to make the effort to stay up late and stay in the cold and cheer me on. So it really added to the feelings and the emotions after the match, yeah. Well, it's not my first huge match. I think it's definitely going to be a tough one. Coco is an amazing player and playing at home, so I'm expecting a big crowd to rally behind her just because she's amazing. But it's like every other match, Today I had to dig really deep, so I'm expecting that the next match I have to do even more, So I'm ready and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. No, I'm excited. Like I said the other day when you asked me, it was a tough match for me last time. I think she played really well, so all I can do is take the learnings that I have from our last match and try to implement that in our next one. Yeah.
For too long, they've been invisible. A pause. Until you think about that for a moment. A prime minister telling a young athlete that she had accomplished something governments often struggle to achieve. She had helped people feel seen. Not through policy, not through legislation, but through perseverance, representation, and pride in her identity. And then came the folder. Inside was an announcement that would reportedly become the centerpiece of the day. A scholarship initiative bearing her name. A program designed to help young Filipino athletes pursue opportunities in the United Kingdom. When she heard it, Alex reportedly broke down in tears. Not because of rankings, not because of trophies, but because she understood what the moment represented. Something bigger than herself. Something that would outlast any single tournament. Later that afternoon, journalists gathered at Birmingham's Edgbaston Priory Club, expecting a routine government announcement. Instead, they witnessed something entirely different. Starmer spoke about visibility, community, representation, the impact sports can have far beyond the scoreboard. Then he revealed the name of the program. The room fell silent. Then came a collective gasp. Because no one expected to hear a British government initiative connected to the name of a 21-year-old tennis player. When Alex stepped to the microphone, her hands trembled. She admitted she had arrived in Birmingham expecting to focus on tennis. Nothing more. Then she spoke from the heart. She talked about Filipino workers around the world. About sacrifice. About families separated by oceans. About the people whose stories often go unnoticed. And then she delivered a line that resonated far beyond that room. To every Filipino who has ever felt invisible, you are seen. The audience erupted into applause. Not polite applause, not ceremonial applause. Genuine applause. The kind that comes when people feel something real. Her mother joined her on stage. The two embraced. Cameras flashed. And in that moment, the story stopped being about rankings, tournaments, or even tennis. It became a story about identity, about representation, about what happens when one person's success inspires an entire community. Later, as she looked at the document bearing her name, years of sacrifice seemed to come rushing back. The long junior tournaments, the travel, the setbacks, the empty courts, the struggles, the belief that someday all of it might mean something. Now it did. Outside, members of Birmingham's Filipino community gathered with flags and banners. Many simply wanted to witness the moment. To be close to something that felt hopeful. Something that felt personal. Something that felt like recognition. And that's what makes this story so compelling. Not the politics, not the headlines, not even the tennis. The scholarship wasn't supposedly announced after a Grand Slam victory. It wasn't tied to a world #1 ranking. It wasn't connected to a record-breaking achievement. It came after a difficult stretch of the season. after losses, after disappointment, after setbacks. In other words, it wasn't about winning. It was about impact. The message was simple. Your value is not determined solely by trophies. Sometimes your greatest achievement is the people you inspire. Sometimes your legacy begins long before the biggest victory arrives. Whether Alex Eala wins another title or not, moments like this remind us that sports can become something much larger than competition. Because eventually, the rankings change. The tournaments end. The crowds move on. But inspiration lasts. And if even one young athlete someday steps onto a court, believing they belong because they saw Alex Eala do it first, then the impact of her journey will extend far beyond any scoreboard. Sometimes the most important victories aren't measured in points. They're measured in possibilities. And that's why people will remember her.